Welcome to the Old Mac Gang podcast, or OMG, the show where longtime Mac and Apple users come together to share practical tips, everyday workflows, and honest takes on Apple technology. I'm Marty Jensius. Tonight we've got our bags packed and we're ready to go. What was that? That was a old John Denver song. My bags are packed. I'm ready to go.
Yep. Peter, Paul, and Mary, I think.
Mary. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, moving on a jet plane. He wrote it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. We got at least we got our musical portion of the show out of the way. But we're going to talk about tech, and the tech we're going to talk about is hardware and some essentials that we think are important when we travel, whether it's by plane, whether it's by boat, whether it's by car, things that we kind of think are the hardware that we need to bring with us to do travel tech. I know Bob has done some presentations on travel tech. I do a show with my now honeymooning son who's in Hawaii, and we do a show called Gear Up and Go when we can be in the same plane at the same time, try to get a show cut. It's been a while, but when he comes back from Hawaii, I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about on that show. But tonight we're going to talk about it in terms of if you're traveling, you're a seasoned kind of listener, then hey, you might enjoy some of the things that we have here. And we have a lot. That's a scary lot of information with the folks who've contributed as part of the Old Mac Gang. So let's go ahead and get introductions around. We'll start with Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a 73-year-old Apple enthusiast from Bay Village, Ohio, a former foundryman and educator, currently retired. I've been an avid user of computers and gadgets since high school, and I enjoy chatting about all the gear, software, and accessories that I use or wish for with this old gang in our audience.
Chris.
Hey, good evening. I'm Chris. I'm a 78-year-old retiree here in Tucson, Arizona. I've been around the Mac since 1984. Spent a lot of time with Apple user groups and spent some time, luckily, working for Apple itself. And later on with some university IT. And now I'm retired with all my Apple toys and really enjoying the Old Mac Gang.
Charlie.
Hi, I'm Charlie Lindahl in Houston, Texas, retiree, 70 years old. I've been using the Mac since 84 in all kinds of things, and I was in IT for Texas A&M for many years, and I helped to support Macs and push Macs and so forth. And I have AirPods, I have MacBook Pro. I'm really into the AI stuff, and I really love being here with the Old Mac Gang. Thank you.
Okay, Bob.
Good evening. My name is Bob Wood. I'm also in Tucson, as you can tell by the saguaro cactus there. Every year I make a presentation in October to our local Mac user group that we call the Geek Gift Guide. And that presentation always has a portion that is travel-related technology. And I am to blame for many of the links that are going to appear, hopefully, in the show notes of things that I have recommended in the past. So, over to Marty.
Well, Bob, we're going to take advantage of that. I'm going to cut through some websites that we found that are going to be part of the show notes at youtube.com/oldmacgang. I'm going to cut through some of those websites to get to some of the things that you've suggested, Bob. But it's kind of appropriate. I didn't think about this, but one of our visitors and panel folks, Gary is in the room. It's great to see Charlie. And Gary has his Seattle bags packed. He's about ready to do a trip to Seattle. So I think we might not have got Gary in time to purchase a bunch of stuff on Amazon. He might be too close to his trip. But we are going to share lots of links and lots of cool tech that help you with your travel. I think what I'm going to do is go through the questions, and in between the questions, jump to some of the products that Bob and other folks have put in. So we'll space out our questions instead of trying to go product to product right now in a long row. But there are some sites that are part of this. This one from AARP, tech use and adoption keeps surging among older adults. And then in the men's journal, I travel for a living. Here are the 11 best travel gadgets I take on planes, trains, and automobiles. One from Pack Hacker, best tech gifts for frequent travelers in 2026. And then another article by Vertu, your top 20 tech gadgets for seniors in 2025. And then All Seniors Foundation, top tech gadgets every senior should have in 2025. And then TechRadar, 12 essential MagSafe accessories for travel. And best travel gear for 2026, 26 experts tested essentials from Jetsetter Guide. And that's kind of wraps the articles that we have for listeners to go through, and they will have a ton more ideas in that and suggestions for those of you that are traveling. But let's go ahead and start with the first question to the group so we can get down to, I think, some really good responses. Everybody put in some really lengthy notes, and I appreciate that. What tracking and luggage hardware do you actually travel with? And has it ever saved a trip? Peter.
The luggage itself seems to be the key to it all for me. It's what everything goes into. I have 2 computer-specific pieces of luggage that I use relentlessly. So traveling to me might not be all the way to Seattle. It might be across town, downstate. It's happening all the time. And anytime I'm taking my gear, and I tend to take everything, my MacBook Pro, my iPad Pro, my Kindle, they go into my nomadic 20-liter backpack. There are plenty of good backpacks out there, so there's no reason to think, that's the be-all and end-all. You need to find one that has lots of compartments. I started out with just the MacBook, the iPad, and the Kindle in it, and over the years, mine is filled up with all kinds of cords, adapters, power supplies, spare late model AirPods, wired earbuds, batteries, most everything I'd ever need. And there's been one time or another where I've needed one of those things. And that stuff got added slowly over many years. I didn't need to go out and think, how am I going to load this thing up? A decade or more. And it never moves out of that backpack. The only thing that goes in and out of the backpack are my devices. And I don't ever think about what do I need when I'm headed out the door. I just grab my backpack, put the stuff in it, and go. It is quite heavy, so I will say that it gives me a little bit of the exercise I need carrying it around. But to me, it's worth it to have all that stuff with me. Now, there are times where I need to be more nimble, that is just too heavy. And I also use a Timbuktu extra small messenger bag. And in those occasions, I just put 2 things in it, my iPad, my Kindle, and a small notebook and a few pencils. So on vacations and big trips like Gary's, I take both because I might be going somewhere where I want everything, and I might be going on some little excursion to a museum where I just want a couple of things. Saving a trip. I AirTag, my wife would say I AirTag everything, but I AirTag an awful lot of things, and helping me find missing items and warning me before I leave something behind has happened more times than I could count. So, Chris.
Yeah, I think we've talked about AirTags previously, and suffice it to say, if I was going to check a bag on a plane nowadays, I wouldn't do it without an AirTag inside, because it can really save the day and find luggage. And I have numerous friends in the camera club that can testify to that. And there's also an added feature that with some of the major airlines, Apple now can share the technology for that bag with that airline. There's a way to do that to help them track down bags. So it's just a no-brainer in terms of that. What I started doing in the last year was I had already purchased a relatively large power brick that I, can take on day trips. And I've got the cables in here for lightning and, for USB-C and that sort of thing. But it's a little heavy for photography. So what I did was I picked up more of a single-use Mophie battery that just MagSafes right onto the back of the iPhone. And some of the apps that I use, like the Adobe app, Project Indigo, is processor intensive, and so it tends to chew up a little bit more battery. And with this guy on, I mean, I don't even notice the weight difference. It's quite negligible. And in terms of cable bags, Marty was gracious enough for MacStock last year to create this bag, which I still have, and you can see there are cables inside, so it's being put to use with 3 pockets. But these kinds of things exist, and they're handy to use. In terms of, actual luggage, I think the first time I took a trip and forgot one of the chargers for one of my big cameras, I realized that I needed, or my watch, that was an interesting one. So I set up duplicates in a travel bag like Peter. I think it depends on the individual as to whether or not you want to do that, or whether you like to make a laundry list and repack everything every time. I think some redundancy would be helpful for me. We're not taking as many long trips at this point, but, and for me, like Marty's saying, travel could be overnight. It could be a day trip across town to a really nice birding location that's, an hour or 2 hours away. Or, it could be just on a trip down the hill to another bird place. And, it just depends upon what I need. I tend to, travel a little bit more nimbly these days due to arthritis and such and minimizing weight. But lots out there, and we'll keep the ball rolling with Charlie.
Okay. I don't have any particular luggage set for traveling, but I have several backpacks with useful pockets for small devices like AirPods. I do have AirTags on all my luggage and my keys for that matter. And the one thing that's wonderful about the AirTags is within Bluetooth range. It piggybacks on any Bluetooth anywhere in the area. So I found my cat a mile away from my house, which was kind of nice. I carry different power supplies, multiple, and I make sure they're all charged. And I have them in my car, in my backpack. I have them everywhere, so I'm never without power of any kind. And I also have AirPods and an Apple X watch. I use the Find My feature to find my AirPods and my AirPod case, which is kind of a nice feature. And I also use my watch to find my phone, which I've done in a couple of days. I have the S Lady configured so I can make calls and text via voice, which it's not just in the car, of course. That's really useful. And lastly, I have my car fully wired for everything power, and I also use my CAN bus OBD2 interface, which is built into every car since 1998, to be able to control and monitor my car.
As has been said before, and probably will say again, AirTags is something that I have. I'm happy to say that I've not needed them to find lost luggage yet. But it's nice to look on your phone and see the bags leave the terminal and go to your plane and then be unloaded and make it to the baggage carousel. I strongly recommend that when you replace your batteries in the AirTags, change the name to something like computer bag 5/26. That way, when you look on Find My, you know how old the battery is. Other things I recommend are Apple Juice Jacker adapters. This is an adapter for use in airports, hotels, and coffee shops that allows power to pass to your devices, but it does not allow any data to pass. So if there's somebody on the other end of that outlet, they're not going to get at your information. And there's a picture of it on the screen. I also recommend a AirPod lanyard. And this is a lanyard that clips to the AirPods and it goes around your neck. And if one falls out or you pull one out, you don't lose it. And as a wise man once said, if you drop your AirPod and an airline and it falls between the seat and the armrest, you've just donated it to the airline. And so for a few bucks, you can prevent that. I also recommend having portable Bluetooth speakers and donate it, a portable Bluetooth speaker, and water resistance is a plus. Now, something I found recently is a Bluetooth sleep headphones, and it has an integral eye shade. This helps me sleep at home and on the road. And I can listen to either music or podcasts or white noise or recordings of the surf or whatever it is that makes you calm and helps you sleep. So that's a really nice thing. One thing I saw at Walmart was an LED light up charger cord. One of the employees there had this cord that came out of one pocket and went into another, and it was multicolored, and the colors were moving through the cord at the same time. Now, why is this a good thing to take on a trip? Because you ain't never going to forget your cord and power adapter in your hotel room because the cord is all lit up. For luggage, I have a somewhat old school rolling computer case that I use as my carry-on bag. It holds my MacBook, iPad, cables, as well as personal items such as toiletries, medications, and the ever-popular set of socks and underwear to use when your bags take a divergent trip. And yes, there's an AirTag in that bag too. I also suggest a flat tracker that works on the AirTag network and put it in your wallet. It's the size of a credit card and maybe two credit cards thick. And there's the one that I have. I have a little story about someone who went to MacStock via car and may or may not have left his or her wallet behind. And when this person got to the first stop to stop and have breakfast, realizing they can't pay for breakfast because they don't have their wallet, but more importantly, realizing they can't get on a plane at O'Hare and come home because they don't have their driver's license, ID, or passport. So this is an anecdotal story that may or may not have happened to someone who may or may not have gone to MacStock. And that's my story from MacStock. Marty?
You guys have all come up with really good suggestions, and I'm going to work my way backwards here. I do have a wallet tracker, and it's in my wallet somewhere. I was looking around on my desk for it, but I think it's rolling. I forget what it is. I'll look it up when I'm not on camera and let you know. But that is another wallet tracker that is very good. I know Chuck Joyner recommended it, and the only problem is when I sit on it, it takes the pressure and it starts to beep like there's something wrong with it. So I have to carry my wallet in my front pocket now or even worse, what happens is it loses its signal to my phone, so it thinks it's lost, so it starts beeping because the signal can't get through my fat butt. So the other things that were brought up, Peter, when you talked about Nomad, I really I really love. I have a bunch of their different versions, but it varies for me depending on what kind of equipment I'm taking. If I'm taking my Vision Pro, then I need this over-the-shoulder, larger, wider bag that Nomad does, so I can fit the case inside of it, and it then becomes, a carry-on of a carry-on. I have smaller Nomads. I have larger Nomad bags. It's really quite a good system and good luggage through that. The other thing that you mentioned was Timbuktu, and I have got a couple of those bags. In fact, I used one today because when I'm teaching, every other day that I'm teaching a different course, and there might be different things I need to put in the bag, in which case, in some courses I need a larger bag, in some courses I need a smaller bag. But I have probably 2 or 3 of those Timbuk messenger bags, and they are nice kind of over-the-shoulder bags. Today I took my MacBook Neo, so it was a nice small device to put in the bag. So hooray for that. As far as luggage trackers are concerned, AirPods is what I have. I used to tag them on the outside of the bag. For our listeners, that's the mistake. They suggest, but I'm always apprehensive. Will the signal get through the bag in terms of the AirTag? For listeners, the problem with them having on the outside is they're very visible, and you can kind of clip them off, or people who want to take your luggage can clip them off. So put them inside the bag, and I put them right in the shell lining of the bag, so it's available and viewable that way. The thing is, to me, it's like a vaccination. It's an insurance policy. I've never had to cash in the insurance policy, and I've never caught a lost bag as a result. And it's sort of like you think I'd get one chance to really test it out. The other thing AirTags do for me is that they combine with Find My, and they often signal me popping up on my phone, telling me that I left my MacBook back in Seattle, when I look over my shoulder and it's sitting right there next to me in the bag. So there's a bunch of false positives that occur for me, but it means I'm constantly checking on my equipment to make sure I've got what I want out of it. During that last with Bob, I put a lot of the links up that he had for different products that he was talking about, and we'll have that again in the show notes, so they'll be available for people to check out on their own in terms of good suggestions and good devices for travel. So let's talk about how these devices work with you in terms of travel. So you think of Apple Fall Detection, AirPods Pro Conversation Boost, Bluetooth hearing aids, and using these kinds of this kind of hardware for travel as it's related to health, as it's related to accommodations and things that could be. So what health or accessibility gear do you travel with, and has it changed how confident you feel away from home? Peter.
Yeah, my Apple Watch, my AirPods Pro, and my iPhone are on my person nearly 100% of every day, whether I'm traveling or not. So traveling isn't making a difference for those things. My suitcase, which is involved with traveling, does have a pocket that has accumulated yet another copy of everything needed for charging. So when I take an extended trip, I don't need to pack my normal charging stations at home. They stay where they are. And all of these things that I carry and can charge when I'm away have the health and safety aspects that we have and will continue to discuss on this show. The only actual things that I need to pack, I guess, with regard to health and safety are my CPAP and my blood pressure cuff. I feel confident that I'm not yet to forget those when I'm traveling. I'm a long-term traveler, even though I am absent-minded. So I do forget things. Here's what I forget. underwear, socks, a tie, pajamas, usually some clothing item. Not a lot of them, but one particular thing. And frankly, that's what's provoked me into upgrading my wardrobe over the years, not bringing it on a trip. So on to you, Chris.
Wow, I could tell a funny story about that, but anyway, moving on. I have my Apple Watch. I don't carry the AirPod Pros with me that much, but I do use them. And by the way, here's the lanyard. I happen to have the blue one. I think these came from Amazon. Relatively small price. These, if I can get this thing squared away, let's see, where is it? There's a lag here with the camera. But anyway, the stems of the AirPods go through the thing at the bottom here very easily. And since I piggyback them on top of my hearing aids, I really want that. I have had the occasion where I dropped one in the toilet, and the good news is it was fine after it dried out. But at any rate, between the Apple Watch, my iPhone, and potentially future AI clip-on devices, we'll see what's up on that territory. We're getting more and more electronic. I too have a CPAP, doesn't everybody over a certain age? And I don't carry a blood pressure cuff around, but this stuff is becoming every day, and I think I've made one or two day trips without my Apple Watch, but I try real hard not to forget it because I use it all the time. And I find it very handy in navigation and driving. And I've mentioned this to some people that have the watch, but they use Google Maps. And although I think the Google Maps also has the same blinker function now, but it's really saved me in, tense driving situations like in LA. But yeah, so I think that's what I have on that. Charlie?
Yeah, I haven't tried the watch fall detection feature. I think I've got it turned on, but I haven't invoked it because I haven't fallen, which is good. And I have pretty high-end hearing aids that last for days instead of the AirPods with hearing. If you have it turned on all the time, I think it's like 4 hours or something like that. So I haven't used that. But I do plan to use the live translation feature that is built in the iPhones and also the AirPods. And from a little testing I've done, it does pretty good about short stuff. So if I'm actually talking to somebody who can only speak Spanish, I've run into a couple of places there. It does a pretty good job at translation. So let's see. I also have the high heart BPM, high heart rate feature, and it's gone off a couple of times when I was playing tennis, for example. Let's see. I have blood pressure cuffs that talk to the Apple Health. So whenever I take a blood pressure, and whether I'm traveling or not, it's kind of nice to have. And I highly recommend the USB data blocker that we've mentioned in someone else mentioned that, but we also have it in the links, which means if you're plugged into a USB source at an airport or a public space, it blocks the data transfer and only does power, which I think is very useful, and it's very cheap, less than $10 for like 2 or something like that.
Bob.
The health tech that I always have on a trip includes my CPAP machine. And that's where I have a love-hate relationship with that tech. And that's where the old-fashioned roller computer bag helps out, because I can lift up the handle and slide the CPAP machine on, so when I'm going in or out of a hotel, I have it there securely. I do have an Apple Watch, and I do have it with fall detection on, and it has gone off when I was walking into a store from the parking lot and didn't realize there was a curb and a step up to get into the store, and it right down on my face, and it said, "Looks like you've fallen. Should I call 911?" And I said, "No, I'm just embarrassed. I'm not hurt." But it's nice to have it there when you need it. Marty?
Yeah, I travel with a small CPAP. I a few years ago made the decision to get a travel CPAP. I don't know how many of you guys take your one from home. For me, it was a couple of times I forgot it. And then that turned the trip into kind of a real tragedy in terms of me being able to sleep and recovery and such. I bought a smaller travel one because the component that I have as a CPAP is a much larger machine with a water tank that I never use. I have never used a humidifier on mine. So it's an unuseful part of the machine. Having the smaller travel CPAP was great because it's probably a third of the size of the one that I have at home. It doesn't have a tank on it, and it fits very nicely, and I pack it in my luggage. Now, Peter forgets socks. Sometimes I forget technology. My tips for not forgetting socks and not forgetting technology is another room. That's where my suitcase goes open. The day before, all the clothes that I'm going to take parse through the day. All of the, underwear and socks parse through the days with an extra pair in there if I need it. So I'm kind of got everything equipped and ready to go. As far as the tech goes, empty Amazon box sits behind me on the floor before I go on a trip. As I'm touching a piece of technology that I'm probably going to need or want to consider, I throw it in the box. That way, by the time the week's up, I pretty much have everything I need to think I'm going to take, and about a third to a half of the box actually gets emptied and taken with me. I do have a Libre blood sugar button that I wear. It's connected, of course, to my Apple Watch, connected to my iPhone through the health and registers through that. I also use my Apple Watch for AFib because I've been diagnosed with that. And last summer was in Chicago, excited to see 2 days of Cubs games, and wound up in the evening before going to the hospital, and was diagnosed again with and then put on medication to be able to manage that, and eventually went through ablation therapy and stuff. But the Apple Watch is what signaled it to me, and I can't tell you enough as part of a traveling health monitor system. The Apple Watch is absolutely great. So I have a nice blood pressure cuff. I think it might have been Peter who at one time recommended it to me in terms of, you don't need, because I have big, large arms, and blood pressure cuffs shift on your bicep, and the connector kind of separates out, and that changes the pressure on it. I haven't had a lot of luck, but then Peter came up with this and shared with me this kind of wrist detections, and those have worked really well for me. They're much more portable, and yes, I always leave them at home. That just somehow doesn't get packed. I know when my blood pressure is up, I feel lousy. I should take it with me. I should use it more often at home. I know my doctor likes that data, but he gets it every time I walk into his office. So, third question. Every traveler has gear that they bought with high hopes and ditched it after one trip, and a small kit of true indispensables. What's the one piece of tech hardware you push every older Mac user headed out solo? And what's the one that you'd say, leave that at home? From experience, I've had plenty of experience buying bad tech, but we'll get to me in a moment. Peter.
Well, as for disappointed high hopes, I'd probably say the crossbody strap that came out last year, which I combined with an iPhone case, and I thought would be perfect for hiking excursions and things like that. But it hasn't worked out yet, although I haven't quite pitched it yet, hoping that I figure out a way to use it better than I have. But I'd probably tell people to leave your crossbody strap at home unless you're just trying to use it for sartorial purposes to look cool. The hardware I pitch is the Moment MagSafe tripod mount combined with the Litra hand grip, which I use for taking photographs. Uh, Whenever I use it at some social event, friends or family, almost every time ask me where they can get it, and so forth. It's not as secure as a lanyard that Chris might use, but it's okay for most non-Grand Canyon type situations. Chris.
Yeah, those are handy, Peter. I have a similar thing on kind of an extended selfie stick, although I don't use it for selfies. It can be very handy for reach, for taking pictures higher or lower and that sort of thing. Although, frankly, I don't use it that often, but, it's a nice thing to have. Um, and I mentioned the portable battery packs. For me, those are really essential when I'm away from AC power. And one of the variables in here that we haven't mentioned yet is the new fast charging on Apple devices. And if you haven't experienced it, what it means kind of in plain English is that, I've only charged my, let's see, iPhone 16 Pro Max and my Apple Watch Series 11 or newer if you have it, when they're hungry. I don't put them on the charger every night overnight. And the battery will last a lot longer that way because no matter what it is, all these rechargeable batteries have so many charging cycles and then they're done. So because of that, fast charging fills in the gap so that, for instance, yesterday I was headed out to a PT thing after my hip surgery and I had forgotten to charge my watch. So I put it on the charger for, maybe 15, 20 minutes, and it was enough to get me through into the evening. So, but that's a very handy thing to have. Now, some of the portable chargers may have that. And if that's the thing that's important to you, that's a good thing to remember. But needless to say, just having some kind of charging that you can snap on in the car when you're away from AC power, very helpful. Um, I tend to be cautious about how can I express this? Let's see. I use mostly Apple branded and top branded accessories. I've learned that sort of the hard way because the bargain ones tend to break and they don't work out and I end up throwing them away or they may not be accurate. And, I have had a cable or two replaced at the Apple store, but you have to have bought it there and be able to show a receipt and not bought it, on Amazon or something like that. So there is logic in doing that. Um, so that would be my 2 cents there, I think. Charlie, how about you?
Yeah, I have a fast charger. And by the way, I mentioned and cable because not all cables will be able to handle the fast charging capability. Um, so you'd want to be aware of that and make sure that you get cables that are labeled as fast charging. Um, let's see, I have two 50,000 amp power bricks, which means they have like 8 cables, and they can charge my MacBook Pro in supposedly an hour and a half from the brick. Um, let's see, and get extra cables for charging. Have them everywhere. Have them in your socks. Have them in your luggage. Everything, because it's really frustrating when you go there and you have your battery, and you have no way to charge it. Um, Also, educate users. We've talked about talking to even older or new people. Uh, Educate your users on the handoff capability, which means that you can hand off between devices. So I can start a Zoom on my phone, and then go to my laptop, and it automatically transfers over, for example, and vice versa. And it's very, very useful. And as far as I know, that capability doesn't exist, out of the box on Windows or Android type stuff. And the last thing is, to everyone, of course, make sure you keep your backups up to date so that when you leave, if you happen to lose something or, or something gets damaged, you don't lose your data. So we did a show on backup technologies a little while ago, and I highly recommend you make sure.
Portable batteries and additional batteries are something you need to bring along. And don't forget a portable battery that will charge your Apple Watch too. Here I have a battery that I have had for quite some time. And this charges the Apple Watch, and it is from Ugreen, and I like it, but that's not the link I put in the show notes. The one I put in the show notes is a battery charger for your watch and for your iPhone. Uh, and if I were buying one today, that's what I'd buy. But I do have a little story about batteries. Went to Antelope Canyon, which is in northern Arizona, a beautiful place to take photographs. It's a slot canyon, and the sun comes in the canyon, and it's just a wonderful, colorful place. We got there, stayed at a hotel, and everything was ready, and we get out and we get on the bus to go to Antelope Canyon, which was 25, 30-minute drive in this huge four-wheel drive vehicle. We get in there, I set up my tripod, I put my big camera on the tripod, I turn it on and nothing happens. And I check it and still nothing's happening. And I said, I know the battery's charged. I charged it all night in the hotel room, plugged into the wall, and that's where it is, plugged into the wall in the hotel room. Luckily, as someone who used to do some wedding photography, I had a small point and shoot camera in the pocket of my pants, pulled that out, and I was able to put this little bitty camera on this big honking tripod and got some really nice photographs. Well, when I got home, the first thing I ordered was a second battery for my big camera. So have extra batteries, have battery chargers, and you will not run into the problem that I had. Marty?
Okay, running joke. I buy new stuff. I also buy power bricks, but never have a need to use them because my phone runs all day long and my watch runs all day long. So I just need to plug it in at night and it's charged and ready to go. I know Charlie was talking about fast charging, or somebody was talking about fast charging, and I did buy a fast charger because, for example, on the MacBook Neo, the charger that comes with it is not a fast charger. It is a kind of standard output, but it can take charging up to 30. To fast charge, you want to get it between 30 and 40 watts. And the charger that comes with it is 20, 29, something like that. So to get the full fast charging effect of the device, you need to come up with a different a brick that you can plug it in with. And so, yeah, I did get that, but I typically don't use a lot of charging supplemental batteries and things like that, because when I'm here at home, I lay my phone on the charger and there it goes. And I respect Chris's caution that your device, if you want it to last a long time, will go through a series of cycles, and you don't want to have it topped off all the time. That doesn't help the battery process. I just top it off because I'm going to get itchy and try and get a new piece of technology with it. So I'll tell you one piece of tech that I bought, which was I do a show called Tech Savvy Professor, and my colleague had gotten one on that show, and I thought, yeah, what the hell? and it is a dual monitor that slips on the frame of your laptop. And then you suddenly have 3 monitors. You have your laptop monitor, you have the 2 side monitors. And this folds into a nice little compressed thing. The problem is it weighs a ton. And, there are different devices that you can clip onto your monitor on a laptop, but Macs are so thin that you don't want to put anything with any heavy weight on it. Now, the guy that turned me onto this was a Dell user and had one of these big old hunkin' Dell computers. And he even after a while admitted it was a little too much because you had to kind of put a external clamp and kind of clamp it on, and it was compressing to hold the 2 side monitors on. And that's accident ready to happen. I think I put it on once here at home and it never made the trip with me anywhere I went. Instead, if you're going to get one piece of technology that works for me, doesn't mean it's going to work for you, but works for me is I do have an external monitor that now pretty much goes with me where I go because I really like dual monitors. And generally where I'm going, there's some work for me to be done, and dual monitors come in handy. I did MacStock 1 year with an iPad, and that whole interface is a little different than just plugging in a small flat screen monitor that you can get for like $200 now that acts as a 4K monitor on the side, 15-inch across. Nice little thing, flat as a MacBook Neo. Not very thick, and then just slide it in your case. So that is kind of the thing that I would say I need to take with me. Again, everything I take is based on the distance and what the purpose is I am with the trip. Probably now I'm going to try and do most of my work with a MacBook Neo. If I'm in a situation where I know I'm going to be remote and doing podcasting, I'll bring my MacBook Pro instead of the Neo. But for trips to Chicago to see some ball games for the weekend where I'm not going to be doing any heavy lifting in terms of work, the Neo will do fine. The external monitor will help. If I'm flying, definite, got to take the AirPods Pro 3 for noise cancellation. And I've been through Bose, I've been through a lot of different noise cancellation over-the-ear headphones, and have reduced it down to the size of AirPods Pro 3 and the noise cancellation that happens with that, and those just work perfect. At this point, it's that sweet spot of enough noise cancellation to make whatever I'm doing enjoyable. Vision Pro for longer flights. And then Bob, I'm going to give Bob some credit on this. He came up with this device. It is a Lysen, L-I-S-E-N, phone accessory, and it is a clamp. It's a pressure clamp that you can clamp onto the seat in front of you with a MagSafe connector so you can plop your phone on it. And watch movies. I mean, I watch movies, and if I forget something like this, or they find there are these ones that are like credit card little fold-out stands that are kind of neat that you can put on your seat tray. You don't have to sit there and hold it. You're not holding it through the whole flight. Your hands are free, and you can sit and watch it. So this little device that Bob suggested is really cool. With the MagSafe portion of it. I'm trying to find some way to clamp it into my car, but they warn you, don't use this for vents on your car because the clamp is so powerful it'll crack them. And then Chuck Joyner suggested another one, which Bob's might wind replacing. And I got this and forgot to give it to my son on his travel because I wanted him to try it out. It is a Paralogix. And it works not just as a clamp, but you can also set it up so it will flatten out and hold it as like a stand if you want to put it on a table. And it has a couple of options, but it is a clamp kind of device. It's not a MagSafe holder with it. So you have to pull the clamp apart, put your phone in it, and you can stick it on the tray table in front of you, or you can put it on the tray table as it's down. it has some options for that. So I'll put those in. If I'm flying and I'm not taking my Vision Pro, I'm going to be watching movies on my phone. This seems like a couple of good devices to do that with. So, guys, that's all that wraps up. Are there any remaining comments that you want to talk about? Yeah, Bob.
I have a travel-related. I have two things. First of all, I'm happy that I've spent some of your money, Marty. And the other one is I have a travel-related dad joke. When vultures go on vacation, what kind of luggage do they take? And the answer is carry-on.
Carry on. Yeah. I do edit this. I could remove this out, but I think I do more credit to you by leaving that joke in. And staying with that. Any other tips, any other technology people want to talk about, or do we do a wrap? I'm not seeing any affirmations, yeah.
I do have one point, and I sent it to the OMG group. I'm working with a surgeon down in Houston Methodist, and he's wanting to push for using Vision Pro in actual surgeries. And apparently, last week, San Diego did a successful cataract surgery using the Vision Pro. So this is pretty interesting.
Okay. There's been a whole series of different types of medical uses for Vision Pro. We talk about it on Vision Profiles on Monday nights at 9 p.m. streaming on YouTube. If you go through some of our old shows or go through some of the show notes, you'll see the different ways that it's been used. And most recently, the article that probably had the hottest press was the one that you were talking about, Charlie, in terms of the cataract surgery and how it's used in assistive cataract surgery. So no more on this. We'll call it a wrap. Thank you, Chris, Bob, Charlie, Peter, as always. I threw this topic out early this morning, or maybe it was late this morning, and you just kind of filled it up with a lot of great stuff. So I encourage listeners or viewers to go ahead and look at the show notes, and the old Mac gang will spend some of your money for you as you go, I got to try that. I want to get that. So have a good time enjoying that. There's a question in, and I want to kind of bring it to light. There are some sites, and this comes from our Armand Mitchell. Has anyone had any experience configuring the eSIM for foreign countries? It's interesting because my travel in the past and the article that I read on it reminded me of my travel in the past. I think it was maybe in 6 colors. Where you talked about how you used to have to go, if you traveled into other countries, you'd have to find a phone shop. Then you'd have to get your phone to a degree registered. Then you'd have to buy an eSIM. Then you'd have to buy a SIM to swap out. And then you'd have to buy contours for the amount of time or the amount of calls or messages that you're making, and re-up those contours as you ran out. It was a rather complicated system. That's changed a lot. You can go online and find eSIMs that can be bought and purchased online, and you just add them in with like a QR code or some way into your phone as a second eSIM. So when you arrive in that country, you can run off of that. It's out there. It's present. I haven't had any experience doing eSIMs in other countries yet. Usually when I travel, because I'm on an AT&T, I wind up just doing an international plan for AT&T, and that works for where I go in terms of for the needs that I have instead of going in country. Years ago, I had a burner phone that I took when I went to another country so I could have a second number, and I went through that whole procedure that I just described in terms of finding the phone shop in Taksim in Turkey and and then getting the guy helping my friend helping me get the phone activated for that purpose. So it's a whole new world out there I'm on. And thanks for that question. It's a good sort of tech travel question, which is what we're covering now. So that wraps up this episode of the Old Mac Gang. Tech travel gear isn't about chasing the latest gadget. It's about removing the friction from the trip so you can actually enjoy being wherever you're going. Thanks to, again, this group, the Old Mac Gang. Thanks to the folks who are in the chat room, including Gary and Armand, joining us tonight and putting some comments in. We are here pretty much every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, live. You can join us at youtube.com/@OldMacGang. Our website is thepodtalk.net, and our email is thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com. Bob's alluded to MacStock through our conversations. I've been there. Chris has alluded to the cable package that I gave out last year for the Pod Talk Network, and you can check out what MacStock's all about. It's MacStockConference.com. If you check out that website, you'll see the speakers are going to be there. Some exciting folks coming and presenting there. It is a great community of 100+ people that you get to know everybody through lunch and connecting with folks. I couldn't encourage you enough to go there and attend it in person. But if you look at the site, MacStockConference.com, and if you choose to get a ticket to MacStock, put in Pod Talk when you check out, and you'll get $50 off the cost of the ticket for MacStock Conference this year. Coming up July 9th through the 12th. July 9th is going to be an eCam training day for folks who are using eCam as a separate kind of part of the conference. And then the 10th, 11th, and 12th is all conference. Great speakers. You'll learn a lot. And I generally, Bob, come back from that spending money. I mean, I've spent the money before I actually come back from that because I'm buying apps people are talking about. I'm doing there's some equipment. This looks fascinating. I want to do that. So check out MacStockConference.com. Thanks, everybody, for listening and seeing us and joining us on this. Check out the show notes for all the links. And now that you've done all that and you've listened this far, you are now part of the Old Mac Gang.